Good morning, everybody. This is episode 7 of the Off Topical Podcast. My name's Gardiner.
And my name's Raven.
And 30 million Facebook users had their profile information stolen from the site. Were you affected? Plus, Purism shares more details about the Librem 5 phone, including UI mockups and more. And Ethan Lee is now working full-time on Proton. All this and more today. But first, I'm a little bit under the weather still. I don't know if you can hear it in my voice. If you can, I apologize. Let's just soldier through this, shall we?
You can do it.
I think I can do it. And now, let's get to the good stuff. As a follow-up to a story we covered in a previous episode, Ethan Lee is now developing full-time on Proton. Did you hear about this, Raven?
I did. I saw his tweet when it came through, and he was super excited. And I was like, oh, finally. Because, he's been working on FNA, and yeah, he ports games. But, FNA is kind of like it just works, and I'm sure he's still going to port games. I don't believe for a second that he would pass up the opportunity to bring a game to Linux as much as he loves Linux. But, it's so solid, like the developers can pretty much handle it themselves now for the most part.
I think that's what he was banking on. When he, in the last episode, we talked about the his Google Plus post, where he was like, yeah, FNA is mature now, and I'm happy with every part of the system. Basically, he thinks that any game developer out there who has experience with XNA will probably be able to just pick up FNA and have it work, which that's impressive to achieve something like that. But one of the cool things is that all the subsystems that are part of FNA, like, for example, F Audio, these are like re-implementations of like proprietary Windows libraries for example, X Audio, which is a way to like allow games to communicate with sound hardware on Windows. And what he's done here is he's actually ported F Audio over to Proton. So, games that use X Audio on Windows will be able to, attach to F Audio through Proton and have like compatibility. And the tweet you were talking about, right, was playing Rage, which is one of the games that has been notoriously difficult to get to run with sound on through Wine, right?
Oh yeah, the game itself works beautifully, but it's just there's no sound. So it's like who can play a game without sound?
Especially a game with John Goodman's voice in it. I mean, come on.
I know, right? It's amazing, and and that is a big thing with like Wine and in particular Proton. There are a lot of games that work on Linux through Wine or Proton, but they don't have audio, or they stutter, or they crash because, an hour or two in, they have some weird memory leak or something, and it's always usually in relation to audio. Well, not always, but, sometimes. And
yeah,
him fixing that and implementing F Audio, because I think right now Wine uses OpenAL soft to try to emulate, I guess, sound APIs. So
right.
I'm hoping, it seems to work. He did post a lovely little photo, and some people because they just dumped that beta yesterday for the new Proton, which I think has changes. I can't remember if it has changes that he's done or not yet. It might. I thought I saw some maybe some preliminary work, and but I do know that the latest beta of Proton added a lot more support for a lot more games. Yeah,
that's really exciting. I mean, you and I were talking earlier, I think last night, about getting a game of Ryzen Nations going, which I haven't had a chance to try out yet, but I think with this new beta, you said that Ryzen Nation should work, right?
Yes, it might require some fiddling, and it doesn't work out of box, but apparently once you make some minor alterations, it works, so it's like one step closer. And the biggest change for that was updating to the latest build of DXVK and enabling DirectX 10 support,
right.
Which is great. Because I was kind of worried about if they were going to do DirectX 10 or not. They should, because technically the DirectX 11 specification has like a weird backwards compatibility mode, which kind of is like a subset of DirectX 11, but has like the feature level of DirectX 10. I'm not really sure how it works. I'm not a DirectX developer. I just know it exists, and I believe Ryzen, that should be the reason for DXVK supporting DirectX 10. Because not a whole lot of games are DirectX 10. In fact, I'm very surprised that the Ryzen Nations remaster is DirectX 10.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
I thought it was DirectX 11.
I thought Ryzen Nations was DX9, honestly.
Well, the original one is.
Oh, okay.
but the remaster's on like an updated engine, and I thought for sure they just rolled it up to a DirectX 11 because it's from like what 2013, 2014. Like why would anyone use DirectX 10? No one used DirectX 10 when it was new.
What do you guys think? What games do you want to see work on Proton? Like, what should Valve do to make your favorite game work out of the box? Let us know. Hit us up in an email. Gardiner@offtopical.net. Elementary OS 5.0 Juno releases. Now, this is exciting stuff. I'm a fan of Elementary and the people behind it. How about you?
I'm a fan of the people behind Elementary OS, but I'm not really a fan of the distro itself. To me, it's like they wanted to make Mac OS and bring it to Linux.
I don't see anything wrong with that.
Well, okay, Mac OS is really locked down, right?
Yeah.
You can't really do a lot. Well, same thing with Elementary OS. It's locked down. Like, out of the box, you don't have PPAs, for example, in Elementary OS. So all you get is whatever their App Center has. I mean, you have to enable PPA support. Can you enable it? Yes. Is it really easy to enable? Yes, of course it is. This is still Linux. This is not some crazy proprietary, bullshit. It's still open source. It's still easy to do. But for me, out of the box, not having PPA support on, it's just weird.
I can see how you would think it was weird. I mean, as someone who like lived for over a decade in the Ubuntu, space, like I can understand that. But like I also get what they're trying to do. Like they're building a fast, simple, easy to use Linux distro that's meant for the everyman and not specifically Linux users.
Oh yeah, I agree with that part, and that's the part where I get behind them. Making a distro that doesn't have the complexities that all the other distros have.
Yeah.
Where things just work. Juno's going to be supported for a long time, at least until I guess it'll be 20.04.
Whoa. Really?
Yeah, Elementary OS jumps between Ubuntu LTSs. So they'll port all the Ubuntu LTS patches into it. And they're always like they're always like 6 months behind, typically. Huh. And that could change. They've been growing quite heavily here lately, which is fantastic. So they might be like, day one, Ubuntu drops and then they drop, which would be pretty cool. Yeah,
definitely. This release actually is pretty exciting because there's like a huge write-up on Medium where they always take a lot of time and put a lot of effort into their communication with the public, and I really appreciate that.
It's the best part about the development of Elementary OS.
They're very open and they're very forthwith with the community. I just wanted to read a couple like small bits from their Medium post. Over the past year, we've been hard at work putting together a new major version of Elementary OS, codenamed Juno. It is the culmination of a ton of updates and improvements with three major goals: provide a more refined user experience, improve productivity for new and seasoned users alike, and take our development platform to the next level. And they certainly did that. I mean, if you see like there's like this huge list of things that they have updated and improved, and one of the things that really stood out to me was Elementary Code, which is a fully functional code editor. According to the Medium post too, this was the thing that received the most attention, refinement, and improvements over this release cycle. It's pretty exciting stuff. Did you get a chance to see this?
Yeah, I saw Elementary Code. It's nice. It's a programmer's text editor with some little extra stuff. It kind of reminds me of like taking gedit and then adding a whole bunch of plugins together. It's all out of the box and it's all native to the application. It's not. I mean, it does have plugin support, but you know what I mean. Like it's all the features are there and they're supposed to be there. You're not just pasting it on.
Right. Yeah.
It is pretty nice. I'm a fan of. I might use it not inside of Elementary because I don't want to use it there, but I might use it elsewhere just because I'd like to get away from anything made in Electron. I'm so tired of stuff getting made in Electron.
Me too. Right now, I'm using Atom for my coding, but Once elementary code hits the AUR, I'm definitely gonna give this a shot.
You absolutely should, because I mean, I don't know. I mean, like, there's not too much of a problem. Like, if you're just doing web dev or whatever, Atom or Visual Studio Code are, they're not a bad choice.
Yeah.
But if you're working on like a massive major project, it really starts to show.
Yeah.
Like the speed of opening all the files and everything, it really starts to show. And I personally, I don't care what anyone says. You can't do but so much because it's written in JavaScript.
Right. Well, see, and the thing is, for me, it's like most of my projects are web development. So, and even with like, I have this large project that I'm doing at work, and it has something like 750,000 lines of code. It's insane. And I wrote it all. There's a couple like libraries that I pulled in, like the MongoDB PHP plugin, or driver, I guess. But holy crap. The rest of that I wrote myself, and it's like I was using Atom and it got too big for Atom. So then I had to switch to VS Code at work, and even VS Code struggles with it. And it's like, I'm all about like native applications. I don't care for the Electron based apps. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me.
Yeah, I mean, Electron makes things easy to theme and, quick to build. I mean, we've seen how fast developers have taken their, because, it's the web, making something is really quick and easy on the web, which is impressive. But I don't know. I mean, for something major, but they are nice, and at least they're both open source. At least it's kind of weird because Atom and Visual Code are both owned by Microsoft. So it's.
I know.
I mean, initially, because that's the thing. I wondered this. I know it's a little off topic, but I wondered this when Microsoft bought GitHub. Are they going to kill Atom, or are they going to merge Atom and Visual Studio Code together? Because they both do the exact same thing.
Yeah, and they're both built on the same technologies. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, why keep Atom? Because Visual Studio Code is the superior one of the two. In fairness, it really is.
It's superior in a couple ways, for sure.
Yeah, and I'm sure it's because they have their Visual Studio dev team probably behind it. And those people have years of experience building development environments for programmers, so they have that to leverage. And
Microsoft also is like using some proprietary like binary blobs that are dropped in there for good measure, just to stick it to open source.
Oh, absolutely.
But there is so much more that was updated with the release of Elementary OS, and we can't cover it all here, but you can check out the blog post. There's a link in the show notes. It's really cool stuff. But we want to know what you think of Elementary. Shoot us an email, gardiner@offtopical.net. So this is really exciting stuff. Haiku drops their beta, which, holy crap. I've been a big fan of Haiku for a long time. I think since basically the project's inception. And, their last actual release was about 6 years ago, which is like insane to me, right? A lot of things have changed. What are some of the things that have changed, man?
Oh gosh, almost everything.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm also a pretty big fan of Haiku. I've followed it for years, but I never used it. And Lunduke made a video about it, and I was like, maybe I'll try it. So I fired up a virtual machine because I'm not gonna put some random OS on any of my machines. I'm just not. And I was really surprised by it because in a way, it obviously reminds me of BOS or BOS. I'm not really sure how to pronounce it there.
Yeah.
It should, because obviously it's supposed to be like that. But also kind of reminds me of the next step a little bit.
Right.
Just a little bit. I know there's a different, like the GNU step or whatever, but it reminds me of like that old kind of style, I guess. But I liked it. I was really surprised. It didn't run too good in the virtual machine.
Right.
And it wouldn't recognize the monitor properly in the virtual machine, so I only got 4:3 resolution, but apparently if you install it natively, it will properly detect your monitor, or so people say. And you can actually put it in 1080p or whatever your monitor is. But so I was stuck in 1024 by 768, so that was beautiful. But besides that, I really liked it.
Yeah.
I really did. They're backwards compatible to an extent with the old BOS stuff, which is pretty cool. If you can find any of that software still lying around. And the system requirements for it is basically like what, a toaster or something. I mean,
Yeah, it's like a Pentium 2 or Athlon and 256 megabytes of RAM and 3 gigabytes of storage space.
yep.
Which
And
is
minimum
just
monitor
insane.
resolution of 800 by 600. It's fantastic.
Yeah.
I would say the biggest downside to Haiku, and I know they're fixing it because they were part of Google's Summer Code, I think in 2017
Yeah.
or maybe 2018, and people want to bring the Mesa project to Haiku,
Yeah, that would
and
be
that would
amazing.
be amazing. I mean, I'm rocking Nvidia cards. I mean, everyone who knows me knows I'm rocking Nvidia cards, but
Yeah.
every passing year, it's like, why do I still get these things? I mean, I know why I get them because they're actually superior for gaming because they get all the advantages of AMD and Nvidia. But I don't know. I slowly but surely, I really want to go to the open source drivers, and it would be nice to see Haiku get that because, I mean, let's face it, the common person is not going to use Haiku. I mean, anyone who's
No.
seen the interface is like, that's not going to happen. It's just not. But for Linux people or people who just want to use something funky, because I know, have you met these people before? I don't really want to sound negative, but
No, I haven't.
like I have friends who will only use the oddball operating system.
Yeah.
Like that's their thing. And they have moved from Linux to like BSD because Linux has gotten too popular.
Oh yeah, hipsters.
Yeah, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, guys, like come on, like how do you maintain productivity? And they're like, we don't need productivity. We just, it plays my music and my movies and I can watch YouTube. I'm like, oh gosh. But hey, whatever works for you. And I see Haiku taking off. Plus,
Oh,
they
yeah.
have the package manager now.
Yeah, the package manager is.
Have you tried it? The package manager? It works beautifully.
Yeah, I haven't, but It's like the next thing on my like hobby list to do. It's gonna be cool.
I truly recommend that you find a computer and install it straight on the computer.
Yeah.
Because it does not work well on a virtual machine, and it makes sense. I mean, it works fine enough because I think it does use Mesa at least for emulating OpenGL.
Right.
So it's quite CPU hungry if you want to use something that requires a lot of like trying to play a game or something. But outside of that, I mean, it barely uses any resources. I think when I was running a virtual machine, I think the operating system is using like 30 megabytes of RAM or something. I was just blown away. I was like, how long has it been since we've seen an operating system that only uses a few megabytes of RAM?
Yeah, that's insane to me.
Like, even a bare bones Linux running GNOME is just like, what, 500 something probably?
I would think it's like a gigabyte, but I guess I could be wrong about that.
Yeah, I don't know. I have 64 gigs of RAM in my machine. It's a non-issue, but Haiku could really bring that old system back to life.
Oh yeah. Well, I have a couple like laptops that I'm not using. And when I try out the beta, it's going to be bare metal install on one of those laptops.
Now, Wi-Fi support can be really finicky though.
That's what I've heard. Yeah. I'm really, the funny thing was when I was writing the show notes and like writing down my thoughts on this, I wrote this phrase down on the show notes. Haiku packages are a compressed file system image that gets mounted by a kernel module when the package is installed. And then inside my own head, I went, wait a minute, that's really, really cool. And then I realized how much of a nerd I was. And it was just this one little gleeful moment that I had when I was preparing for the show today.
Well, when I first tried Haiku and I was trying to figure out, okay, how do I change the screen resolution? Because that was the thing for me, because it was in like 800 by 600 or something. It was really small. And I was like, okay, there has to be a way to, change the screen resolution, right?
Yeah.
So I tried the obvious step, let's right click, because I mean, it's a pretty common practice across most operating systems. I don't know about Mac, but most major operating systems. Well, it wasn't there, by the way. But the thing that blew me away is like you can right click, and you know how most operating systems, or you can create like a text file or a document. Usually you can extend it depending on your file manager. But it was incredible because like you could right click and you could create, source files for C or C++ programs. And I was like, man, this thing is so built for developers.
Yeah, that's so cool.
It's like, oh, I don't want to make a text file. I want to make a C file or a header file. It's like, yes.
That's awesome.
And the file manager was weird to get used to as well. I can't really explain it very well, but it makes sense once you use it. You'll see what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
We'll have to talk about it next week or the week after when you actually get around to using it. You'll see exactly what I'm talking about. It's very weird, but it's actually not bad. I got to be honest with you. I'm mostly a programmer. That's my main thing. That's mainly what I do in front of my computer. I game, but if Haiku got Mesa support, even if it was just for Intel and AMD, I mean, because Nvidia doesn't have Mesa support. I mean, it kind of does, but let's be real, it doesn't. I would probably swap out my my graphics cards, and I could potentially see myself using Haiku as my main driver for the day, and then like when I want to game, boot into Linux.
Yeah.
I really like the idea of possibly developing in it. I haven't tried it yet, but it's very lovely. The only thing that sucks is it uses GCC 4 and or GCC 2, so it's a little dated. So I'm not really too sure how that'll all play out. But who knows? Maybe they'll roll up. I know they're going to keep GCC 2 support because they're trying to keep the old BOS support. But I think at some point Haiku just needs to realize that they're just a loving, well, not really a memory, but they remember. They want to be like a tribute to BOS, but they should be something new and modern at the same time.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Backwards compatibility is nice, but like that software is aging rapidly.
Absolutely.
There's a lot more that we didn't even get to touch on, like for example, Web Positive or any of the other major updates that's taken place as part of this beta over the last 6 years. You can check out their release notes of the beta over on our show notes, patreon.com/thelinuxgamer, and let us know what you think. Have you tried running Haiku on bare metal? Let me know. I'm at the Linux Gamer on Twitter and Mastodon. And what are your handles?
At Raven6784 on Twitter. I unfortunately am not on Mastodon yet. I know, shame on me.
I am on Mastodon. I have tooted once. Is that what you call it? Tooted?
I don't know what you call it on Mastodon.
Yeah, I've tooted once. I tried to toot again from the same app that I logged in at, and it gave me an error. So, but I'm on Mastodon, so hit me up. I'm on linuxrocks.online. So Purism, I know you're very excited about this, Raven.
Oh gosh, I'm so excited.
Oh my god, it's so great. So Purism is showing off details about the Librem 5 phone. New details about the last month of their development, and oh my god, it seems like they're all thrusters go on this.
I know. Well, see, I didn't see the update, and then you talked about it, and I was like, what are you talking about? Show me. And then you sent it to me, and I looked at it, and I was like, oh my gosh. I was like so excited. I haven't really been excited that much in quite a while about new hardware or software or anything, because it's mostly been the same.
Yeah.
Like every year AMD, Nvidia, or every other year in their case, they'll bring out a new graphics card and there'll be something new nifty thing. Like right now Nvidia says ray tracing, which don't get me wrong, that's super cool.
Yeah.
But I haven't really been this excited in so long. I feel like a young kid again. And it looks so good.
Yeah, it looks amazing. And I agree with you, the other flip side is it's like, Samsung or Apple come out with their new flagship phone, and it's like they're not innovating at all. They're like bringing out this, the new Note has the new Note X22 or whatever has 6 freaking cameras in it. Great. That's innovation, guys. No, this is innovation. This is super cool because it's using this really cool new hardware, and it's using literally a Linux distribution on it, and it's so exciting to me. Oh my god.
I know. The only worry that I have for Purism is battery life.
Me too. Yeah.
And that is so amazing because that's one thing that I have to worry about. Because I said it in the last episode, I don't trust my Samsung phone.
I don't trust my phone either. They're not worth your trust. But let's talk about Purism for a second. So the Librem 5 here, if you look at their what did they call this? The General Development Report, right? This came out October 15th, so a couple days ago. They have a ton of information on here. They're talking about software that's being updated, the work that GNOME is doing for GNOME Shell for mobile devices. And if you like, there are mock-ups of like, the app drawer and the in-app keyboard and all the gestures that you'll be able to use to interface with your device. And it's like, I mean, this is like a new way of like interacting with a phone, and it's going to be using GNOME, which is, I'm not shy about saying my favorite desktop environment. Like I don't like most other desktop environments. GNOME is my jam. So this is just super duper exciting to me.
No, you should be. It's awesome. And the best part about Purism is we have complete control over that phone. You don't want GPS? Kill it.
Yeah.
You don't want Wi-Fi? Yeah. Kill it. Has hardware switches for almost everything.
Oh man. And yeah, the hardware switches, that's something I talk about with my friends, and they all give me a look like, you're so paranoid. But no, it's really important.
Yeah, they're like, oh, I don't do anything wrong. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. The thing is too, it's like a lot of the stuff that they're talking about here, it's like this is like what pushes innovation. Like this is what solving these problems that nobody in the Linux world has solved before, like helps all the projects that are involved with it, like this is just super cool. And there are a couple things that you said that you were worried about battery life. That's a concern of mine, but I think that they'll be able to do something about that.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, they're only supporting one piece of hardware with it officially anyway.
Right.
I mean, it can't be any worse than my Samsung. I have to charge that thing every night.
One of the things, there are two things that have me just not concerned at all, but that I'd like to see from this device. The first thing is a good camera. Like that's kind of important to me. Like being able to take pull your phone out of your pocket and take a good photo. It doesn't have to be great, even just good. And the other thing is I want to see gestural typing, because I can type with one hand and not have to look at my phone, using just my thumb. Gestural typing like swipe or Google keyboards typing, where you can just touch on a letter and move your finger to the right letters in that word and then release and it types for you. That's something I'd love to see in this, but that's probably a down the road thing. Let's just get the keyboard working right to begin.
I don't
with.
know. You say that, but I really feel that it could possibly come at launch. Some of that stuff I think will, because you have to remember, both GNOME and KDE have been working on a mobile version for quite a while now. Yeah. So it's not like they're that far behind. It's not like Purism started from nothing.
Right. Yeah.
Which is, that's great. Because KDE is also going to be a feature or an option that you can install on this phone. And it's actually pretty well polished. But I'm hopeful. I hope it has a really good camera. I actually don't like phones that have really bad cameras.
Yeah. I had the Moto Z Play, and that thing couldn't take a picture to save its life. It was junk. But I'm hoping it can, the Librem 5 can do just better than that. Doesn't have to be the iPhone XS Max or whatever.
Or the Samsungs with their dual cameras and zooming capability. I don't care about the wide angle or the zooming, but I do care about it being taken a really nice, high quality photo. That's all I care about.
Right, exactly.
Zooming, anything else is just extra icing on the cake.
Right, for sure. But yeah, are you guys excited about the Librem 5? Let us know. Let us know in the comments. We love to hear what you guys have to say, and we might read what you have to say on the next episode. In other GNOME good news, you see what I did there?
In other GNOME news, yes, I did.
All right. In a post on his blog, Tobias Bernard, a designer at Purism and contributor to GNOME, says that theming, as it stands today on Linux, is fundamentally broken and there's no clear way to fix it. Quote, "The basic issue we're arguing about is whether it's possible to restyle applications automatically at scale without breaking them. Thoughts?
I agree with him completely.
Yeah.
I know right before we did the podcast, me and you were briefly talking about this, and there are some themes, like in both GNOME and KDE, for example, that they just work. And then there are some where they just make you want to scream. Like, it'll work perfectly, but then you open up Firefox and you can't see what you're typing in the address bar.
Yeah.
And it's just like, just so much rage.
Oh, yeah.
You know, like,
yeah.
Arc is one of the themes. I think it's Arc Darker or Arc Dark. I can't remember because there's 3 versions of that. One of those themes works perfectly. And the rest just don't work at all, in my opinion. Though, like, they have, like, minor issues. And they might be minor, but it's just, no. It's not minor to me. I want everything to work perfectly. There's no reason that it can't.
Exactly. Yeah. I agree with you. I didn't realize that there was no theming API in GNOME 3, right? Like, themes that we have now in GNOME 3 are essentially just CSS. It's the same CSS target that app developers use to design their apps, and that can cause like various conflicts, right? One of the things that he said in the blog post was, quote, "One of the most frustrating things about the current situation is that to users, it looks like things almost work. For the most part, third-party themes look and work okay-ish. There are just a few small bugs here and there, a button with too little contrast, an underline clashing with a border, a really large loading spinner. Not that big of a deal, you'd think." But then he touches on stuff that, like, for me have been pain points for a long time, like dark themes that end up making inputs on websites dark and unreadable, or like title bars with massive glitches that, make it impossible to interact with, or missing text or low contrast icons, or non-GTK apps just looking like crap no matter what, I don't know. This is a fascinating read, and I hear a lot of people talk all the time about, like, they love customization when it comes to Linux. But I've always found that the customization just breaks things for the most part. And maybe that's because I've been on GNOME 3 for a long time, but even back with GNOME 2, like, I had an issue with theming. Like, it never turned out looking exactly the way I wanted, and things would just kind of break in irritating ways.
Well, usually in my experience, when you see people talk about how much they love theming, they're usually using i3 anyway. I mean, I could be wrong. This is just from my personal experience, so don't anybody, bite my head off. I know tons of people theme with KDE and XFCE and LXDE and, Mate, sorry.
Mm-hmm.
But the biggest themers that I see is i3, because out of the box, i3 is hideous. It is hideous. But the thing about that is, when people use, say, i3 and they theme, or people who are super serious about it, they write their own themes.
Yeah.
So they usually don't get any of the issues that he's talking about because they use it every day. And when they see the problem, they go and they work at it and they fix it.
Right.
Which is interesting because, you could release that for everyone and then everyone would have a nice theme that, just kind of works.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that he mentioned in his blog post too was that, like, part of the reason that this just isn't possible or isn't feasible to fix is that, with like Ubuntu and Manjaro and a bunch of these other distros having their own themes that represent their brand, if you will, app developers will build their app and target Adwaita, or however you pronounce it, and then the people would install the app on Manjaro or on Ubuntu, and things would just be broken, or Pop OS, right? And things would be broken, and then the people using the apps would go to the developers and be like, "Hey, what's going on with this? It doesn't work. It doesn't look right. It doesn't do my thing." And so the app developer is spending a lot of time supporting something they never intended to support, which is like, this custom quote theme that is really just a screwy little hack job to make GNOME look different. I can definitely see where this guy's coming from here, Tobias Bernard. I've felt this way and never, for a long time, and never had like the words to articulate my frustration with this.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's been a long-standing issue for as long as I can remember. I mean, I first got into Linux in 2003, and I don't truthfully, I don't remember too much back then because it was a nightmare and I don't want to. But even back then, it was a nightmare.
Oh yeah.
And it has gotten a lot better. I mean, I would argue that is something that a lot of people have forgotten. As much as people complain about some of the issues and things that exist now, it is 100 times better than it was 10 years ago, even.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So where are we going to be in 10 years?
The dominant desktop, baby.
Oh yeah, that would be fantastic. I would love to see Linux as the dominant desktop.
Oh yeah.
Even if because I don't think that Linux would lose what it is just because it becomes the dominant desktop. I think instead, because Linux has a bad habit, or a good habit, if you will, of taking over people's lives and thoughts and how they feel about their computer and operating system. Like, you ever notice that?
Oh yeah,
like you'll give someone like Linux and they'll change. Like, all right, my grandparents, they're not really computer savvy all that much,
Right.
They just use a computer to check, surf the web, check their email, maybe play like solitaire, And a couple years ago, I got them some System 76 computers. Well, they bought it, but I recommended it to them and was like, hey, why don't you guys try this? So they got a laptop, the Kudu Professional or whatever. I think they still make it, but it looks a little different now, obviously. And they really liked it, and they shared it. And then my grandmother was like, well, I want my own. So I don't remember. Do you remember the Sable or whatever it was?
Yeah. Yep.
The all-in-one with the monitor that they for some reason don't sell anymore, even though it was fantastic.
Yeah.
She has that in her office.
That's awesome.
And that's all they use. And I'm not done, man. So now to get to the part where Linux changes people. They're older, so they're more private conscientious than, say, a millennial.
Right.
But they were fine with using Google and stuff. They didn't really like Google, but, they were fine with using it. And now they just want to use, like, DuckDuckGo.
That's awesome.
And, they wanted, like, they installed the DuckDuckGo privacy app. I was like, well, all right then. Because, I'm sitting there, like, doing some stuff. And I'm like, why do they have the DuckDuckGo privacy app? And they're like, we installed that so we couldn't be tracked. And I was like...
Oh, my God. That's so cool.
Yeah. So, Linux has I guess quote unquote, a bad habit of turning people into something, great. It makes you more aware of, how you use your computer. And they don't do anything special with it. I mean, my gosh, if they actually launch the terminal, I get a phone call. What is this thing?
Well, no, I can definitely see that. I remember Matt Hartley in a blog post a while back said something about how like Windows has this adversarial relationship with the user, right? And it makes people who aren't into computers like feel like they have to trick their computer into doing what they want it to do, right? And it's like Windows 10 now is especially that way, where like forced updates and all the rest of the crap that comes with it. And it's like people are used to this adversarial relationship with the PC that they own. What Brian Lenduk said in my last podcast was, he was like, computers are a part of us. So when you actually have control over your computer and you actually get to like make decisions about the operating system, you feel like it's a part of you. And that is like a really powerful thing. And I think that might be the power that you're talking about here when you say Linux changes people, because I've seen that. I know that that's true. And that's really cool, especially that it's your grandparents.
Yeah, man. Hey, I caught my grandfather playing Wesnoth. So,
dude, that's so awesome.
I was like, wait a minute.
Wow, cool. Well, one of the things that I thought was really nice about the blog post too was something that I feel applies to more than just the discussion around theming, and I just wanted to read that for you guys. As the recent discussions have shown, talking about solutions before we agree on what the problem isn't very productive. So for now, I'm mostly interested in making sure we're all aware of the problem and its various facets. There are several different stakeholders with different perspectives on this issue, and making progress will mean making some hard choices. And personally, I think that applies to more than just user experience.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things that needs to possibly happen is definitely some form of standard needs to be developed that all desktop environments and all distros support. But that's a tough choice, because there you're talking about, well, who gets to set the standard? what do we use? Because not every, desktop environment uses like, GNOME has its whole, JavaScript engine and everything in the background.
Yeah.
Not every, they all work differently. So you're going to have to come up with this uniform standard across desktop environments that all work differently.
Yeah. It's just not possible.
There is no easy choice. He's very right. It's going to be some really hard choices. But I think that in 10 years, we'll have it. There'll be lots of complaints, lots of valid complaints about it. And we'll fix it further because, you should always fix valid complaints.
Mm.
And then we'll be even better off than we are now.
Definitely.
And I would argue we're already pretty well off. I mean,
oh yeah.
We actually have an issue where there's too much freedom. I mean, that's fantastic.
Yeah, for sure. That's
unlike
great.
say Windows, where you have to like buy third-party software or hack DLLs to like get new themes that aren't just, look, I changed my color from black to pink.
Right.
Ugh.
What do you guys think? Is there a big problem with theming, or do you think that the desktop environment should be the thing that sets your theme, and if you don't like it, use something else? Let us know. Hit us up on Twitter or on the show notes. There, you can leave a comment there. You don't have to be a patron. All right. This is a big story. I find this almost intimidating to talk about.
Especially considering last week.
Oh, yeah, I know, for sure.
Like, what is it? Every week now, the major internet company is going to, like...
Dude, it's like, this kind of stuff, they don't take your security seriously. I don't know. Facebook confirms that there was a massive data breach. 30 million people's data was exposed. Now, the details here are fascinating and scary as hell. On September 25th, Facebook discovered that a vulnerability had been exploited in their tokening system. This vulnerability was caused by, quote, a complex interaction between 3 bugs, unquote, which allowed attackers to gain access tokens. On September 28th, Facebook announced that potentially 50 million people had their data compromised and then revised that number down to 30. Facebook reports that they've closed the attack vector and invalidated the tokens that were potentially impacted by the vulnerability. And they say you don't need to change your password. The attackers exploited part of Facebook's code that existed between July 2017 and September 2018. Man, there's just so much here, and it's so incredibly interesting. I don't know. What do you think about this, Raven?
I think it's terrifying.
Yeah.
I mean, it's, like I said before, like, what did we just talk about last week?
Yeah.
What did we just get done, ranting and raving about last week? Like, it's every week with these companies. I don't have a Facebook account.
No.
I pulled a Lunduke. I deleted my Facebook account. No, I mean, I never used it anyway. When I deleted it, the last post was from 2011, and I deleted it last year, so it's not like there was really a whole lot going on there. But no. These people cannot be trusted with any of your information whatsoever. And people are just willingly giving it to them. I mean, in this particular instance, no, this is not the user's fault. This is Facebook's fault. But the fact of the matter is, you're putting all your information on a website that they have proven time and time again that they cannot secure.
Right.
Facebook has like stores and stuff now.
Yeah.
And you have to put your information on there to sell stuff. What if those people are impacted? Because, it's one thing to say, oh, my Facebook was open. Now they get to see all my pictures that I've taken of, like, food. It's like, okay, whatever. You know, that stuff's irrelevant. But what about the people who had a shop and maybe had to put, like, their tax number, their social security number, and all this other stuff? What if they had to put that on there?
Mm.
I haven't used the shop because I don't have a Facebook account, so I can't even go to it anyway.
Yeah, I have a Facebook account, but it just has a picture of my old dog. And I have to have it because I manage the Facebook account at work. It has nothing else on it. The cool thing is about this is like there's actually a little app you can go to Facebook and it'll tell you if you were one of the 30 million that were affected by this.
Were you one of the 30 million affected by it?
I was not.
I think it didn't have to do with something with the messaging system or something.
Well, what it actually had to do with was you can actually view your profile as somebody else, right? So like,
Well, that's fascinating.
yeah, so you can see what your profile looks like to a friend, and because you're able to actually like change, the visibility of certain things, like, your relationship status, your religion, and stuff like that. And so, but there was a bug in 3 of these different things that grant you access to that kind of information. What happened was the attackers actually controlled a set of accounts that were connected to Facebook friends, and they were able to like automatically generate tokens to see their profile as a friend, which they were then able to use to exploit that like virally. So they would get access to their friends' profiles, and then their friends' profiles, and then their friends' profiles. And it was like this thing. So they had like 400 million people whose access tokens they stole. And from that, they were able to access 30 million people's information. And that's just insane. Like when you think about like the 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon, it's like how it's the same idea here, right?
It's pretty impressive. It's also impressive that it took Facebook so long to not recognize it, because they're one of those big, internet companies that's supposed to have excellent staff.
Yeah.
They should have a QA or some form of security department that's always trying to think of new ways to break in, and you'll never catch everything.
Right.
I mean, I'm not trying to be that. I don't like Facebook. I don't like Google. I don't like Microsoft. I don't like all these companies. But I'm also not such a hard ass that I don't realize that it's not possible to catch everything.
Right. And when you see like, I read the whole like write up on this, and like the way that they caught on was that they saw like this virality in their, basically a big spike in the amount of traffic that was going on. And that's how they caught on to this at first, was that there was this big uptick in like sign-ins, or I'm not exactly sure what they were kind of vague on that point, but there was a big uptick in traffic, and they were able to like find this exploit within a month or so, I think. Well, July 2017 to September 2018, but I don't think it was being exploited for more than like 25 days. But that's really, I mean, and I will commend Facebook for the fact that they disclosed this, whereas Google didn't, with their social network. Like,
I just wonder what they haven't disclosed. Like, that's the thing.
Yeah. I mean, definitely. But
that might just be me being too negative. I don't know.
I mean, but I don't think you're being negative. I'm skeptical of companies like this. But, I mean, the thing is, too, it's like the types of information that was exposed here. 15 million people of those affected had their phone number and or email address exposed, along with their name. Another 14 million had their username, gender, locale, relationship status, religion, hometown, self-reported city, birth date, device type used to access Facebook, education, work, and the last 10 places they checked into or were tagged at, their website, people or pages they follow, and the 15 most recent searches.
So maybe it's not too big of a security breach. It's more of a privacy breach, I guess.
I would think that it is a privacy breach.
Assuming that that's all that happened. I mean, for all we know, they got more.
Right. Yeah. I mean,
and Facebook might not know. I mean, in fairness.
Well, given how like the way that they've described this and my understanding of how Facebook's API works, I mean, this would make sense that this is the only data they were able to get. Oh, there was also so none of the messages that were sent through Facebook Messenger were exposed. However, some of the messages for pages that you administer would potentially have had some contents leaked, but not necessarily all of it. It's fascinating, and it's like, I love the fact that like nerds can just go and find these like vulnerabilities, and like for me, what seems like this monolithic wall of security, which that's just my perception of it. Other people see, oh hey, here's a weird bug. What happens if I poke it this way? What happens if I do that? That's just fascinating to me.
That's the best way to learn.
Oh yeah, absolutely. If you want to find out if you were affected by this data leak, you can head over to our show notes, and there's a link to Facebook that will let you know if you were affected. You have to be signed in to Facebook in order to have that work. Do you think we have time for some listener comments?
Oh, absolutely.
Red Lulz Gaming on YouTube asks, Linus, Torvalds or Sebastian? I would say Torvalds, obviously.
Yeah, I'm in with agreement.
I mean, nothing against Linus Sebastian, but like my dad always told me never trust a man with two first names.
That's some pretty good advice.
Yeah. I mean, Torvalds is like one of the most prolific and influential programmers ever, right? And Linus Sebastian is a guy on YouTube. So I'm going to go with Torvalds.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Torvalds as well.
All right. Mir Ashif 1 on Twitter asks, typical computer users don't need Windows for what they do. What is stopping Linux from going mainstream? Are there too many choices? Is it an advertisement problem or is it something else? And then a tux emoji.
I would say schools, perhaps.
Schools, yeah.
Well, usually the main reason people use Windows is because they use Windows because that's what they're used to. You ask most Windows people, they don't like Windows.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you can go on Reddit or the internet for 5 seconds and figure out that they don't like Windows. And, the whole argument of applications and all that stuff aside, what's the main reason why people use Windows? It's what they're most exposed to. When they're kids and they're in school, what are they using? Windows.
Yeah.
I mean, can you imagine if the school ran nothing but Linux and taught Linux in computer class?
Yeah.
I mean, because what are kids taught in computer class these days? I mean, they're definitely not taught how to program anymore. No, what are they taught? They're taught how to use Microsoft Word.
Yeah, Visual Studio.
Yeah, they're taught how to use just like Word and stuff. It's like, no, what they should do is put Linux in there. No, for starters, it'll be cheaper.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I know that like Microsoft and a bunch of other places have really great programs to make computers affordable, but you can make them even more affordable if you just put Linux on them.
Yep, I would agree.
I mean, maybe now it's a little different because Microsoft seems to waive the license fee for certain things, but hands down, just put Linux in schools. If every single school in the United States switched to Linux, you would probably see the decline of Windows just steadily drop.
Yeah.
Because honestly, once people get used to Linux, they like it.
Oh, yeah.
Unlike Windows. Because, I mean, honestly, Linux is kind of one of those things where it doesn't do anything unless you tell it to do something.
Right.
So if you get annoyed with it, stop doing whatever it is you're doing. Autodesk uses a very similar tactic. When you're in school for game design or game development, they don't want you learning Blender. They want you learning Autodesk tools. So what do you use when you get out?
Autodesk.
Same thing. But that's just my opinion. I feel that the biggest holdup is the lack of exposure when you're young.
Right. Well, I think my take on this, and I agree with you too. I think like if kids were exposed to Linux at an early age, I think it would have a profound impact. But I also think that it's kind of a marketing problem where, a lot of my friends think that Linux is the terminal.
Oh, gosh.
And not like a terminal like emulator in a window, like TTY. Like that's what they think that this looks like.
I know.
And it's like, no, that's not it at all. There was a comment I saw on my Linus Tech Tips response video, and the guy was like, you know why people don't use this? It's because open source software can't produce a good user interface to save its life. And personally, I know you might disagree with this, Raven, but I think GNOME 3 is the best looking, best user experience that any company has ever made.
I don't know about that, but it's 100 times better than the Windows or Mac OS.
Oh, yeah. Windows 10 especially.
There is one thing I do love about GNOME. I'll throw you a bone here.
Okay.
There's one thing I love about GNOME, and that is that the games thing. You know what I'm talking about?
Oh, yeah. GNOME Games, yeah.
I love that thing. Oh, my gosh. It's so nice.
It's pretty cool. Did you know they just created a podcast app?
Really?
Yeah, there's a GNOME podcast app. You can download it as a Flatpak right now.
Ugh, always with the flat packs. See, I don't like. That's one thing they're pushing. I don't like flat packs.
Yeah, I don't either. And actually, Lewis Weddle on YouTube asks, what do you think of Flatpak/Snap/app image? Are they the future? And if so, which one?
Oh gosh. I feel like how I'm gonna answer this is either gonna be met with no one's gonna care, or they're gonna want to murder me and dump my body in deep in the forest.
Yeah. As I've used them, they don't integrate well with your system. And they don't feel like native apps. They feel like these weird packaged things. And I just don't see, I don't know. I don't see them being the future, no matter how hard people are pushing it, you know?
Truthfully, I don't like Flatpak or Snap. I'm not even going to get into the whole Flatpak versus Snap debate. I don't like either one of them.
Yeah.
I don't like the sandboxing. Everybody has always talked about, well, we have to sandbox for security. That's a big thing with GNOME, and it's one of the things I don't like. But there's a great XKCD comic, and I'm going to have to find it and send it to you so you can put it in the description of this video so people will understand what I'm talking about. So when you sandbox it, you close it off from the rest of your system. And that's fine for, nothing. I mean, who wants to just run an application and not be able to access the rest of their system?
Right.
So then you have to design ways to interface with the system. But that undoes the whole point of sandboxing.
Right.
Because if you can access it, then somewhere along the way, something can come back.
Right.
So, the whole security thing is just, it's gone. It's not completely gone, obviously, but the XKDCD comic sums it up pretty well. I love his comics, by the way. They're just fantastic.
Me too, yeah.
It's just it's just such a mess, because these things were designed to replace our aging, .debs, RPMs, package managers. Well,
right.
I guess more like not to replace a package manager, but to enhance them, I guess, in a way.
Right.
And I think in a few years, maybe they'll be good. But for right now, I just see them as massive, colossal pains in the asses.
Me too.
Now, as far as app images go, because I didn't say anything about app images, I love app images. App images are amazing. They're everything that Flatpak and Snap want to be.
I've actually had some good experiences with app images.
I've never had a bad experience with an app image. They've always just worked. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
I don't even know who makes app image, but whoever does, they're awesome. I love them.
Yeah.
Like OpenRA uses it, Tiled uses it. Those are the only things I use that actually use an app image, but I'm sure there's tons of other stuff. But the two main things that I love using, I love OpenRA. I mean, you already know that.
Oh yeah.
I mean, you've died a few times. And for Tiled, Tiled, that's the only way to get Tiled on Linux unless you build it yourself or your package manager has it. But I just grab it off itch. It's fantastic.
Yeah.
And it works anywhere. I can just transfer it around. It doesn't matter.
An app that I use is Cura for my 3D printer. Cura uses an app image.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. And it just
works,
really well.
doesn't it? You just set executables and it just works.
Yeah. And it's like my biggest issue with app images is that they never look native, like they never get styled properly by the window manager. At least not on GNOME, but it's like I don't know. I kind of like app images. It seems like it's the standard that everyone's gravitating towards now. I like how Haiku handles its packages, right? Where the packages are a compressed file system image, and then it gets mounted in a read-only system directory that they're incorruptible at that point, and it can still access. It's still a part of your operating system, and you can actually because they are their own individual little images, you can actually roll back at boot time to previous package states. So you can just uninstall an app at boot time just by unselecting it from being mounted by the kernel. And it's that's super cool. Why don't we do that? Or why isn't there a distro that does that? I don't know.
I don't know. That is pretty cool. Maybe in 10 years we'll just be using Flatpak and Snap and they'll be working beautifully.
Maybe.
With zero issues.
I don't think so.
I don't know. I'm very iffy. I will say this though. I find building for Flatpak and Snap to just be more steps than I want to deal with.
Yeah.
And the thing about app image is I don't have to tell the user, hey, you need to install Snap or Flatpak. All I need to tell them is just download it and extract it and then run it.
Yeah.
And that's how it should be.
Yeah. Well, man, I think we've had a great discussion today. What do you think?
Oh, I think it's been fantastic. And I really hope more people give us more comments. This is my favorite part of the podcast is listener comments.
I've been enjoying this too. If you guys have a question, hit us up. You can let us know via email, gardiner@offtopical.net, or you can drop a query in the show notes. You can hit us up on Twitter, or I'm on Mastodon. Whatever you do, though, just leave a question and we'll see if we can't read it in the next episode. You can always catch the latest episode of this show at offtopical.net, or you can subscribe to my YouTube channel for more Linuxy goodness, youtube.com/LinuxGamer. I want to thank Raven for being here with me today. I always enjoy our conversations, my man.
Yeah, me too.
This has been the Off Topical Podcast, and let's do it again soon.